I ease into my breath as I begin, letting each thought drift slowly, the way a soft current moves beneath the surface of a calm lake. When I picture Earth at night, wrapped in darkness and starlight, I feel as though the planet itself is settling down beside us, relaxing into its ancient rhythms. I imagine myself speaking gently as the world turns, and I sense a kind of quiet companionship between my voice and the slow, steady motions happening beneath our feet. Even now, the planet is spinning, not with force or hurry, but with a patient grace that has carried it through billions of years. The rotation is smooth and constant, completing a full circle in about 24 hours, shaping the passing of day and night in a rhythm so familiar that we almost forget how miraculous it is. Because even though we cannot feel the motion, the Earth never stops turning, never changes its calm pace, never rushes or falters. It simply follows its ancient dance, pulling the sunlight across our sky, letting morning rise, letting evening fall, and holding us gently in the cradle of this repeating cycle. When I think about this movement, I imagine the world gliding through space with a softness we rarely consider. It's turning so smooth that life can curl up and rest without ever sensing the movement beneath it. As the Earth rotates, it also carries us around the sun in a wide, graceful orbit that takes an entire year to complete. The distance is enormous, yet the journey feels serene, like drifting on an invisible river of gravity that keeps us steady in our place. The sunlight reaching us has traveled millions of miles, taking about 8 minutes to cross the space between the sun and our world. And by the time it touches the surface, the light has softened, filtered through the air into something gentle and warm. It is strange to think that this warmth comes from a star so powerful, yet here on Earth it arrives as something comforting and familiar. When I imagine the Earth moving through space, I picture a quiet blue sphere floating in darkness, guided smoothly by the sun's pull, maintaining the same path year after year. This path does not waver or twist with chaos. It follows a calm, predictable loop. Even the slight tilt of the Earth, which gives us seasons, remains steady, leaning gently as we pass around the sun, allowing light to shift across hemispheres in a slow, natural rhythm. There is no abruptness in this shift, only gradual changes, like the soft dimming of a lantern or the tender brightening of dawn. Thinking of the planet's orbit always brings me a sense of peace, because it reminds me that even as life feels full of motion, the world we live on moves with a much calmer wisdom, one that carries us forward with quiet certainty. The air surrounding the Earth forms a thin, protective blanket, stretching upward towards space in layers that lighten gradually as they rise. This atmosphere cradles the planet, keeping warmth close, softening the harshness of solar radiation, and shaping the sky into the soothing shades we see each day. Near the surface, where we breathe, the air is thick enough to support life, filled with nitrogen that stays calm and steady, making up most of the atmosphere without reacting loudly or fiercely. Oxygen forms a smaller portion, but it is perfectly balanced to support life gently, providing energy to our bodies without overwhelming the world with too much fire or pressure. Higher up, the air grows colder and thinner, yet it still shields us from the endless emptiness beyond. It scatters sunlight so that during the day our sky appears blue, and it bends the last rays of the sun during sunrise and sunset, painting the horizon in soft colors that are comforting to watch. When I think of this blanket of air, I imagine it as a quiet guardian, transparent, gentle, always there. It moves around us in slow patterns, carrying warmth from one place to another, forming clouds that drift like floating memories. These clouds gather moisture in tiny droplets, rising and falling in cycles that have repeated for millions of years. When the droplets grow heavy, they fall as rain, feeding lakes, rivers, and soil before returning to the sky again. This water cycle, constant yet delicate, is one of Earth's softest rhythms, a process that unfolds without hurry, allowing life to grow, rest, and renew. Rain itself often feels soothing because it follows this patient pattern. Rising, drifting, falling, rising again, never rushing, always returning in its own time, deep beneath the surface. The planet is made of layers that shift slowly, far more slowly than any movement on the surface. Large plates of rock rest on warmer, softer layers beneath, drifting only a few inches each year. This motion is so gradual that over a human lifetime it feels still. Yet over millions of years, these slow movements shape entire continents. Mountains rise inch by inch, valleys widen quietly, and oceans shift their boundaries with the patience of deep time. The surface we stand on today is part of a much older journey, one that continues with steady calm beneath forests, deserts, ice sheets, and fields. Thinking of this deep, slow movement always brings me a sense of humility, because it reminds me that change does not always need to be fast or loud. The earth itself changes in a whisper, growing and reshaping with the gentleness of geological breath. Even volcanoes, which we often imagine as dramatic, are part of a slow cycle that begins far below, where heat and pressure gather gradually over centuries before anything reaches the surface. Most of the planet's inner motions are quiet, happening on a timescale so long that the world appears steady, stable, and peaceful from our perspective above the surface. The oceans follow their own calming rhythms. Though waves may break loudly on shorelines, the larger body of water moves in smooth, expansive motions, currents drifting across thousands of miles, guided by differences in temperature and the pull of the moon. The tides rise and fall because of the moon's gentle influence, pulling the water toward it in cycles that repeat predictably every day. The moon's presence is quiet but strong, creating rhythms that have shaped life since the earliest creatures moved through ancient seas. When I think of tides, I picture the earth breathing slowly, inhaling as water flows inward, exhaling as it retreats. Even the currents that circle the globe do so in steady paths, carrying warmth to colder regions and cooling warmer areas, balancing the temperature of the planet without any sound or rush. These enormous movements happen continuously, and yet they feel peaceful, like the kind of slow motion that invites rest rather than urgency. Forest air also moves with calm intention, drifting through leaves that release oxygen during the day and absorb carbon dioxide at night. This exchange between plants and the air is another quiet cycle, almost like a conversation between the earth and its living inhabitants. Trees do not rush their growth. They expand slowly, adding rings one by one, reaching upward year after year in silence. Their presence cools the air, softens the wind, and creates small pockets of stillness where birds and insects can rest. Even deserts, often imagined as harsh, have their own tranquil qualities. At night, when temperatures fall, the sand cools quickly, and the silence becomes deep enough to feel like a blanket wrapping the landscape. The stars appear brighter in regions like this because the air is so clear, and the vast open spaces reflect the calmness of the sky above. When I imagine the earth as a whole, I see a world shaped by gentle forces: orbit, tides, seasons, air, water, and time itself. All of these move together in harmony, forming a planet that has supported life not through sudden bursts of energy, but through smooth, patient processes that unfold day after day. In the quiet of night, it feels comforting to remember that the world beneath us continues with this same steadiness, offering a place where rest is not only possible but natural. I let my breath settle before I begin again, and in this calm space I turn my attention toward the soft ways light moves across our world. When I think about light on Earth, I do not imagine bright flashes or sharp brilliance. Instead, I imagine the slow spread of dawn, the careful dimming of dusk, and the way shadows lengthen as the sun drifts quietly across the sky. These gentle changes happen every day, shaped not just by the turning of the earth, but also by the way light itself behaves when it touches air, clouds, and land. At the earliest moments of morning, long before the sun appears, its light begins to rise behind the horizon. It moves quietly through the upper atmosphere first, brushing the sky with pale hints of color before reaching the ground. This soft glow is called twilight, and it occurs because sunlight bends slightly as it passes through Earth's air. The atmosphere acts almost like a delicate lens, taking the strong beams from the sun and turning them into something more subdued. Even though the sun is still hidden below the horizon, the sky brightens gently, giving the land a few peaceful moments to wake without abruptness. Twilight is a reminder that transitions on Earth rarely happen suddenly. Most changes, even those guided by something as powerful as the sun, arrive with patience and calm as the sun finally rises. Its light must travel through a thicker layer of atmosphere when it sits low in the sky. This longer journey makes the light appear warmer, softer, because the shorter blue wavelengths scatter away more easily, leaving behind deeper tones, oranges, golds that stretch quietly across the horizon. These colors do not rush. They unfold gradually, shifting with every passing minute as the sun climbs higher. When sunlight reaches its full height in the sky, it becomes brighter and whiter, but even then, it moves with gentle consistency. The light warms the ground, softens the edges of leaves, and spreads across fields in a way that makes everything feel open and unhurried. It is comforting to realize that daylight is not a single state, but a slow spectrum of brightness that changes throughout the day. The sun never leaps into place, and it never vanishes without warning. Its path is steady, predictable, and soothing, offering the same slow rhythm to the world every morning and every night. As the day matures, shadows shift in length and direction, marking the passage of time without ever making a sound. A tree's shadow stretches long in the early hours, then gradually shortens as the sun rises overhead. Late in the afternoon, the shadow elongates again, leaning across the ground like an old friend settling into rest. These shifting shapes are a reminder that light and darkness are always in conversation, each shaping the other. There is something deeply peaceful in watching a shadow move, because its motion is tied to something so steady and ancient. Long before people measured time with clocks, they understood the hours by observing the quiet slide of shadows across the earth. Even now, if I pause long enough, I can see how the light changes minute by minute, always in slow motion, never rushing. The balance between brightness and shade creates a kind of soft harmony that the world carries through the entire day. Clouds also play a tender role in guiding light. When thin clouds drift across the sky, they scatter sunlight into a gentle glow that blankets the landscape evenly. This diffused light softens all edges, making everything appear calmer and less sharp. It is the kind of light that makes a whole day feel restful, as though the world has put a thin curtain over the sun. After rain, when the air is still moist, Sunlight may split into faint arcs of color, forming rainbows that stretch quietly across the sky. These arcs are created when droplets act like tiny lenses, bending the light into its different colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Even this is a peaceful process, dependent not on loud forces but on gentle interactions between light and water. Rainbows appear briefly, without fanfare, and fade just as softly, reminding me that even rare sights in nature can have calm beginnings. Near evening, the sun begins its slow descent, and the atmosphere once again softens its light. The sky warms into deeper tones as the sun moves lower, filling everything with a calm glow that feels like a quiet farewell to the day. Shadows grow long and restful, and the brightness slowly withdraws, allowing the cooler shades of evening to return. The colors we see at sunset, those gentle reds and golds, are shaped by the same scattering of light that brightens dawn. The process is simple, but the effect is soothing, like the world preparing itself for rest. Even after the sun has dipped below the horizon, the sky continues to glow for a while, holding on to the last remnants of daylight before letting them fade into night at night. The light that reaches us comes from softer sources. The moon reflects sunlight from far away, shining just enough to touch the surface with pale silver. Moonlight is faint compared to daylight, but that faintness is part of its calming nature. It drapes over landscapes gently, offering just enough brightness to give shape to the world without overwhelming the quiet of night. Unlike the sun, the moon's brightness changes through phases as it orbits Earth. Sometimes it is full and round, lighting the land with a soft glow. Other times it shrinks to a thin crescent, hanging delicately in the sky like a small piece of light resting above the horizon. Each phase of the moon unfolds in slow progression, taking about a month to complete a full cycle, giving nights their own subtle rhythm. The moon rises and sets at different times each night, and its path across the sky shifts gradually throughout the year. All of these changes happen with gentle predictability, offering a natural clock that humans have followed since ancient times. Beyond the moon, faint light from distant stars reaches Earth after traveling across unimaginable distances. These stars shine steadily, not flickering because of their own nature, but because Earth's atmosphere bends their light slightly as it moves through layers of air. To the eye, this bending creates tiny twinkles that feel like quiet signals from faraway places. And though the stars seem countless, their light is so soft that it never intrudes on the night. It simply fills the sky with a dim, peaceful texture that makes the darkness feel alive without feeling overwhelming. Even the Milky Way, a vast band of starlight stretching across the sky, glows in a muted way, like a gentle brushstroke of light connecting distant parts of the universe. On rare nights, when charged particles from the sun collide with Earth's magnetic field near the poles, the sky lights up in shimmering curtains known as auroras. These lights move slowly, drifting and curling in soft motion, painting the sky with greens, pinks, and sometimes purples. Despite being created by powerful forces far away, the auroras themselves appear peaceful, glowing silently above frozen landscapes in the Arctic and Antarctic regions. Their movement is smooth and unhurried, like a quiet dance of light shaped by the invisible shield that protects our planet. Even darkness itself has a calming structure on Earth. Once the sun sets fully, temperatures drop gradually, encouraging the land and air to rest. Animals adjust to the dimness, some settling into sleep, others moving gently through the shadows. Plants slow their activity, conserving energy for the next sunrise. The world does not shut down suddenly. It relaxes into night just as gently as it awakens into morning. In this darkness, the quiet patterns of light moon stars, distant glows create a balance that helps the earth maintain its natural rhythm. Light and shadow on our planet are not opposites that clash with each other. They are partners that guide the world through cycles of rest and activity, warmth and coolness, brightness and calm. Their interplay shapes the way every living thing grows, moves, and sleeps. And as I speak in the quiet of this moment, I feel grateful for these gentle paths that light follows as it travels across our world. Always steady, always patient, always ready to soften the edges of life just enough for rest. I settle once more into a slow rhythm as I let my thoughts drift toward the quiet ways water and wind shape our world. When I picture these two forces, I do not imagine storms or loud movements. Instead, I think of the gentle patterns they create over long stretches of time, patterns so subtle that we often overlook them. Water, for instance, follows calm cycles that have repeated since the earliest ages of Earth. It rises from oceans and lakes in a quiet breath of vapor, carried upward by warmth that lifts it effortlessly. This vapor drifts through the sky, forming delicate clusters of moisture that gather into clouds. These clouds travel across continents, moving with the steady push of soft winds. And when the droplets become heavy enough, they fall again as rain, returning gently to the ground. Each drop begins its journey in silence and ends it in silence, contributing to rivers, lakes, and soil without any need for haste. If you slow your thoughts long enough to imagine a single droplet rising and falling through this long and patient cycle, you can almost feel the peace held within it. For billions of years, this cycle has continued, not with force but with constancy, shaping landscapes in ways that are smooth and unhurried. When water gathers into rivers, it follows paths carved over immense periods of time. The movement seems steady, but even the fastest rivers, when viewed through the lens of centuries, behave more like threads weaving gently across the land. Each curve they form is a quiet response to the terrain, shifting slightly with every season, adjusting to the soil, the rocks, and the slope. If you observe a riverbank, you may notice how the water polishes stones until they become smooth, rounding their edges slowly as though whispering to them over many years. These stones carry the memory of time in their softened shapes. Even the sound of a river, though it seems like constant motion, arises from the gentle tumbling of water over small surfaces, nothing rushed, nothing forced. In calm moments, rivers reflect the sky with such clarity that the boundary between earth and air becomes almost invisible. This stillness, shaped by countless droplets moving together, creates scenes that feel like moments suspended outside of time. Lakes, to offer their own kind of quiet presence. Their surfaces often lie smooth in the early morning, mirroring the sky so perfectly that clouds appear to float both above and below. Lakes collect rain and river water, holding it in calm basins where life gathers around the edges. Fish swim through these waters with slow, rhythmic movements. Plant roots drink from the quiet depths, and birds rest along the shoreline. Over years, lakes shift slowly, their edges changing, their levels rising and falling with seasons. But this movement is never hurried. It is the patient shaping of a landscape by water that understands time differently than we do. Lakes are reminders that stillness can hold as much power as motion, and that the earth's gentlest features often emerge from the softest persistence far beneath the surface. groundwater moves through soil and porous rock, traveling in darkness for years before emerging again as springs. These springs release water gently into streams, their flow so steady that ancient cultures often saw them as symbols of life's quiet continuity. Many springs maintain the same temperature throughout the year because the underground layers they pass through offer consistent warmth or coolness. This constancy creates an environment where certain plants and animals thrive in peaceful conditions, sustained by water that moves with silent devotion. Wind, just like water, shapes the earth in ways that are subtle and soothing. It forms when warm air rises and cooler air slides in to take its place, creating currents that drift through the atmosphere in graceful patterns. On gentle days, wind brushes leaves on trees with soft touches, making branches sway in a rhythm that feels like slow breathing. Grass bends and lifts again, creating waves across open fields. The movement is simple, but watching it can bring a deep sense of ease, as though the earth itself is exhaling. Even the smallest breezes carry significance. They help seeds travel to new places where plants may grow. They cool warm surfaces, balance temperatures, and circulate fresh air through forests and across plains over long spans of time. Steady winds shape deserts in ways that seem almost artistic. Sand grains, lifted and set down countless times, form tall dunes with smooth curves that ripple like frozen waves. These dunes move gradually across the desert, shifting inch by inch in response to countless gentle breezes. The shapes they take, crescents, ridges, long sweeping lines, are created not by sudden gusts, but by continuous, soft brushing from the air. When I imagine these dunes moving over years, I picture them gliding silently across the landscape, guided by wind that never seeks to rush them. In coastal areas, wind and water work together in quiet cooperation. Waves approach the shore with steady rhythm, shaped by broad movements of air across the ocean's surface. Each wave is unique, yet all follow a repeating cycle that brings water forward and draws it back again. On tranquil days, waves come in soft sequences, each folding gently onto the sand as though laying down one moment of calm after another. The foam left behind dissolves slowly, pulled back into the sea by water seeking its natural level. The entire process is guided by gravity, by the moon's pull, and by the steady influence of wind's subtle forces that blend seamlessly to create the soothing pulse of the shoreline. Forest winds carry their own quiet stories. As they pass through branches, they gather the scents of pine, moss, soil, and leaves warmed by sunlight. These gentle currents distribute moisture, carry pollen, and allow forests to communicate in ways we cannot hear. When wind flows through tall trees, their trunks may sway slightly, absorbing the movement without strain. This flexibility is part of their strength, allowing them to grow tall without rigid resistance. In this interplay between wind and wood, the forest develops a slow and continuous dance that has shaped its growth for centuries. Even air high above the surface follows patterns that feel calm when seen from a wider perspective. Jet streams circled the globe in long bands, guiding weather with broad, sweeping motions. These streams are steady, influenced by temperature differences between regions, yet they move in smooth curves that shape climate gently over seasons. While weather may feel unpredictable to us on the ground, the large-scale movements of air across the planet are balanced and patient, shifting gradually as the earth warms and cools in its natural rhythms. Together, water and wind create a world filled with patterns that repeat in quiet cycles. They move across continents, over mountains, through forests, across oceans, always carving, shaping, and nurturing without any need for noise. They remind me that change does not always need to be dramatic. It can be soft, steady, and continuous, like the slow spreading of ripples on a still lake or the winding path of a breeze through tall grass. When I think of these forces working over countless years, I feel a deep sense of peace. The earth has never relied on sudden movements to become what it is. Instead, it has grown and transformed through the patience of water and the gentleness of air, weaving together a landscape that encourages life to flourish quietly, one moment at a time. I ease myself into a slow breath as I begin again, letting my thoughts drift gently into the quiet story held deep within the stones of our world. When I think of rock, I do not imagine anything harsh or rigid. Instead, I imagine something patient, something that has carried the memory of Earth for longer than any ocean wave or any shifting wind. Stone is often seen as unmoving, yet when you look closely at its history, you realize that rock is shaped by some of the planet's slowest and most soothing processes. These processes happen so gradually that they feel almost like a soft whisper passing through deep time. The earth records its life in stone, writing layer upon layer with a calm hand, keeping a peaceful account of everything that has come before us, long before any living creature walked upon the land. The earth's crust was forming through the cooling of molten rock. This cooling did not happen all at once. It took millions of years for the surface to settle into a solid form, and even then, the crust continued to shift gently, rising and sinking, adjusting itself as the planet released leftover heat from its creation. As the crust cooled, minerals within the rock began to separate and crystallize, creating patterns that looked like quiet strokes of color across a canvas. These minerals settled into place not through force, but through natural, patient arrangement. Each grain found its spot based on temperature, pressure, and time, forming rocks that hold the earliest memories of the world. Looking at such ancient stones today, one might see sparkles of quartz or dark pieces of mica, each crystal shaped slowly, carefully, under deep layers of earth. Over time, erosion, one of Earth's gentlest artists, began to work upon these rocks. Erosion happens when water, wind, and temperature changes gently wear away at stone, shaping it grain by grain. Though it may seem like nothing is happening from one day to the next, erosion transforms entire landscapes across thousands of years. Mountains that once stood sharp and steep gradually become rounded and soft. Cliffs that once appeared jagged begin to smooth along their edges. All of this occurs quietly, without noise or rush, as though the earth prefers to change with subtle touches rather than sudden shifts. If you hold a smooth pebble in your hand, one that has been polished by a river or the tides of an ocean, you are holding a piece of stone that has been shaped by countless small movements each wave. Each ripple, each drop of water playing its part in a calm, patient process. Sedimentary rocks tell an especially soothing tale, because they form from the gentle settling of small particles over long stretches of time. Dust, sand, and tiny fragments of shells drift slowly downward in lakes, rivers, and oceans. They gather in layers, each layer resting quietly on top of the one before it. Over many years, these layers become thick, compacted by the weight they carry, and eventually form stone. When you see rock layers in a canyon or on the side of a mountain, each stripe of color is like a page in the Earth's journal. Some layers may represent soft mud left behind by ancient lakes. Others may contain tiny fossils of creatures that lived most of their lives drifting lazily in calm waters. These fossils, preserved with gentle precision, remind us that even life long ago moved in rhythms that matched the slow patience of the earth itself. In this layered stone, the past is not lost, it is held with quiet respect. One of the softest forms of geological memory lies in limestone. Limestone forms from the gradual accumulation of shells, coral fragments, and the remains of tiny sea creatures. Most of these organisms lived peacefully in shallow, warm seas, drifting with currents or resting gently on ocean floors. Over millions of years, their remains settled into thick beds, eventually becoming stone that now makes up cliffs, caves, and wide stretches of coastline. Limestone holds the imprints of ancient life in delicate detail. A single block might contain the faint outline of a small shell or the fossil of a tiny sea creature, no larger than a grain of rice. These imprints were not carved. They were pressed into place by time and the slow settling of layers above them. It is comforting to think that even the smallest beings left a mark on Earth's memory, preserved quietly in stone long after their movements faded away. Rocks formed deep inside the Earth carry a different kind of memory. These rocks, called metamorphic rocks, begin as one kind of stone and gradually transform into another due to heat and pressure deep underground. This transformation is not sudden. It happens slowly as minerals rearrange themselves into new patterns. The result is stone with swirls, folds, and bands that look almost like gentle brushstrokes created by the planet's inner warmth. Metamorphic rocks show how even intense processes inside the Earth can create things that are beautiful, calm, and harmonious. They remind me that pressure does not always lead to turmoil. Sometimes it leads to quiet transformation. Even granite, one of the most common and sturdy rocks on Earth, has a peaceful origin. Granite forms when molten rock beneath the surface cools slowly, very slowly, often over thousands of years. This slow cooling allows large crystals to grow, giving granite its speckled appearance. No rush, no hurry, just minerals settling into place at their own pace. Each crystal is a small record of temperature and time, holding a stillness that reflects the calmness of its formation. Granite mountains, though they look strong and unchanging, are themselves shaped by deep patience. They rise from the earth through slow uplift, a process that takes far longer than any human generation. And even when they stand tall, they continue to change, softly, worn by wind, water, and time until their surfaces become smooth. Caves, too, tell a gentle story written in stone. They form when water, slightly acidic from absorbing carbon dioxide in the air, moves through limestone. The water dissolves the rock grain by grain, carving out hollow spaces. This process is so slow that a cave can take hundreds of thousands of years to form. Inside these caves, stalactites and stalagmites grow as drops of water leave behind tiny traces of minerals. Each drop adds only the smallest amount of material, yet over centuries, these formations grow into long, graceful shapes. Walking through a cave with these formations feels like stepping into a quiet, ancient gallery created not by hands, but by the soft persistence of nature. Each drip, each layer, each subtle shift in the water's path contributes to the shapes we now admire. The earth creates beauty simply by following its own calm rhythms. Even the largest mountain ranges, like the Himalayas or the Andes, rise through slow movements of rock layers being pushed together. Though we may imagine mountains forming with sudden force, in truth they grow gradually, lifting inch by inch over millions of years. Their peaks stand tall because of long, patient uplift from deep beneath the crust. And once they rise, erosion softens them, smoothing their edges, rounding their profiles, and shaping valleys that cradle rivers and forests. A mountain is not just a monument of stone. It is a testament to the Earth's gentle insistence on change through time. Boulders found scattered across fields often seem random, but many of them were carried by glaciers' slow-moving rivers of ice that advanced across continents during ancient ice ages. Glaciers do not move quickly. They flow like thick, cold honey, advancing just a few inches a day. As they move, they pick up rocks and carry them along, polishing their surfaces and rounding their edges. When the ice eventually melts, these stones are left behind as quiet reminders of a long journey. The smoothness of glacial stones is the mark of countless years spent nestled in ice, moving gently across the land in slow, steady motion. Even volcanic islands, such as those found in the Pacific, grow through repeated layers of cooled lava that build up over time. Though volcanic eruptions can be powerful, the creation of an island itself is a slow and steady accumulation. Layer after layer forms a rise from the ocean floor, and eventually an island emerges. Over thousands of years, erosion softens its edges. Rain nurtures plants that take root in the new soil, and winds shape the coastline. What began as molten rock becomes a peaceful landscape where life grows quietly, nourished by minerals once held deep underground. The stones beneath our feet are full of stories, but they do not tell them loudly. They tell them with quiet presence through layers, shapes, textures, and the soft imprints of time. When I walk across rocky ground or run my hand across the surface of a stone, I feel the calm patience that shaped it. The earth uses stone to remember, and these memories stretch back far beyond the limits of human experience. They remind me that life moves slowly in many ways, and that lasting change often takes place in silence. Stone is the earth's most enduring storyteller. Yet it speaks in the gentlest voice. Its stories do not fade. They simply rest where they are, waiting for us to notice. And when we finally pause long enough to listen, we find that these stories are not about turmoil or sudden shifts. They are about slow creation, soft transformation, and the peaceful passage of time. The memory held in stone is a memory of calm persistence, a world shaped not by rush or force, but by steady, patient rhythms that continue quietly into the present. Life did not rush onto the earth. It arrived with quiet patience, settling into the planet's soft corners long before it left any visible trace behind. When we imagine the earliest forms of life, it is tempting to think of something dramatic, creatures bursting from the sea, or forests springing rapidly into existence. But the truth is far more peaceful, almost serene. Life began as small, fragile beings that drifted calmly in oceans, absorbing sunlight or feeding gently on simple molecules floating around them. These organisms moved with water currents, never in resistance, always following the natural rhythm of their surroundings. Their existence was not marked by loud change, but by gradual growth and slow adaptation. Over time, they left subtle signs of their presence: tiny patterns in sediment, delicate chemical marks in ancient rocks, quiet hints that life once breathed there. These earliest traces remind us that evolution did not begin with complexity, nor with noise, but with softness, persistence, and the steady spreading of simple organisms across the planet's waters for millions of years. Microscopic life lived within the oceans, drifting as part of the vast blue world that covered much of the earth. Bacteria clustered in warm shallows, forming mats that grew layer by layer. These mats, called stromatolites, were the earliest architects of life's physical record. They did not build with intention, but through the natural processes of living and growing. Each layer of a stromatolite formed as microorganisms trapped sediments and built new surfaces on which to divide and thrive. Over unimaginable spans of time, these layers hardened into stone, creating some of the oldest fossils known. When we look at stromatolite structures today, round, layered, calm in appearance, we are seeing the quiet work of early life preserved across billions of years. These fossils are not loud or ornate. They are gentle imprints of persistence, reminders that even the smallest forms of life can leave something, lasting behind simply by existing in harmony with their environment. As oxygen slowly accumulated in the atmosphere due to the photosynthesis of cyanobacteria, the world began to change in subtle ways. This shift did not happen in sudden leaps. It unfolded softly across millions of years, like a long breath being drawn. Oxygen first enriched shallow seas, then deeper waters, and finally it began spreading through the air. Life responded gradually to this new resource. Some organisms adapted to use oxygen, gaining the ability to release more energy and grow more complex. Others remained in oxygen environments, continuing their peaceful existence in sediments or quiet lagoons. The spread of oxygen was one of the most significant events in Earth's history. Yet it happened without drama, no storms, no explosions, no sudden transformations. It was a slow, patient enrichment that opened new possibilities for evolution. Once life gained the energy to grow more complex, new forms began emerging in the oceans. Small, soft-bodied creatures appeared, moving gently across muddy sea floors or drifting slowly through calm waters. They left behind faint impressions in sediment, delicate outlines of their bodies, shallow trails showing where they glided or rested. These early animals were not hunters or fighters. They did not struggle for dominance. Most fed by filtering nutrients from water or by grazing lightly on microbial mats. Their movements were unhurried, their bodies simple, their lives peaceful. When the sediments hardened into rock, they preserved these subtle shapes, giving us some of the most soothing and quiet records of evolution. These impressions are among the most poetic forms of fossils, looking almost like the soft marks left by a leaf or a gentle touch. They remind us that early animal life was marked not by speed or aggression, but by subtle, flowing existence. As time passed into the Cambrian period, life blossomed into new forms. Although the Cambrian is often described as an explosion, the growth of diversity was still part of a long, natural rhythm. Creatures began developing shells and exoskeletons, not to fight, but to protect themselves from the environment, to support their bodies, or to help them burrow safely into soft ocean sands. Trilobites were among the most successful of these early animals, moving slowly over seafloors or resting beneath thin layers of sediment. Their fossilized remains show smooth, curved shapes and intricate segments, delicate details preserved with astonishing clarity. Trilobites were not fearsome predators. Most were calm grazers, living in peaceful communities that spread across ancient seas. Their presence in rocks today is like a quiet signature, a gentle reminder of life's early steps toward complexity. Coral reefs also began forming during these ancient times, creating aquatic gardens where countless species lived together in harmony. Corals grew by adding tiny layers of calcium carbonate to their skeletons. building structures that expanded gradually into intricate formations. These reefs were not built with speed or force, but through the steady, rhythmic activities of small organisms living and dying. Over time, the reefs became sanctuaries for fish, mollusks, crustaceans, and countless other creatures. Every layer of coral tells a story of seasons, temperatures, and the gentle rise and fall of ocean currents. When reefs fossilize, they preserve a snapshot of peaceful ecosystems that once flourished quietly beneath the waves. These fossils are among the most beautiful records of ancient life, complex, yet soothing in their symmetry. Reminders of how communities can grow through cooperation rather than conflict. Eventually, life began to explore shores and shallow waters, edging slowly toward land. The transition from ocean to land was not a dramatic leap. It happened one small step at a time. Plants were among the first to colonize these new environments, spreading across moist surfaces where their roots could find support. Early plants were simple, lacking leaves or flowers, yet they played a vital role in transforming landscapes. Their presence stabilized soil, added organic material, and created habitats for other forms of life. These plants left behind spores and impressions that hardened into rock, offering gentle hints of how green life began its long journey across continents. Their arrival marked the beginning of new ecosystems built upon slow growth, quiet expansion, and the patient work of photosynthesis. As plants established themselves, small animals followed. Millipede-like creatures crawled across damp ground, feeding on decaying organic matter. These early land animals were not swift or aggressive. They moved with careful, exploratory steps, staying close to safe, moist areas. Fossilized footprints from this era show the soft marks of tiny legs pressing into mud prints, so small and delicate that they resemble the quiet trails left by raindrops or falling leaves. These early tracks are among the most touching records of ancient life, because they capture a moment of motion preserved for hundreds of millions of years. They show that even the faintest movement can leave a lasting mark on the earth. With time, forests began to rise. Tall plants developed woody stems, branches, and roots that reached deep into the soil. These forests were dense, humid, and filled with life that moved in gentle rhythms. Insects gliding between leaves, amphibians resting near water, early reptiles basking quietly in patches of sunlight. The fallen trunks of ancient trees would eventually become coal, compressed over millions of years beneath layers of sediment. Coal itself is a deep, dark memory of life, a reminder of lush forests that once breathed and swayed softly in the wind. Every trace of ancient life, no matter how small, tells a story of calm persistence. Fossils are not loud monuments to the past. They are gentle whispers, preserved impressions of beings that lived slowly, peacefully, and with deep connection to their surroundings. These traces show us that evolution does not always march forward with force. Often, it moves like water softly, finding new paths, shaping life with quiet adjustments rather than sudden changes. The earth remembers the soft footsteps of ancient life in stone, in sediment, in subtle patterns left behind by creatures long gone. And when we study these traces, we are not looking at death, we are looking at moments that once held life, held motion, held the quiet determination of organisms simply trying to exist within the world they knew. In this soft continuity, from microscopic organisms to forests stretching across the land, we see the heart of evolution, a gentle unfolding across deep time, a story written not with noise but with patience. When I turn my thoughts toward the long and gentle movements of climate across Earth's history, I feel a sense of stillness settle in. Climate is often described through extreme heat, cold, storms, droughts, but across the expanse of millions of years, it behaves more like a slow and steady breath. It inhales warmth and exhales coolness in patterns that unfold, so gradually that no single moment announces itself as a turning point. Instead, the world drifts from one state to another with patient continuity. Temperatures rise slightly, then fall slightly, in rhythms shaped by the Earth's orbit, the tilt of its axis, the arrangement of continents, the quiet drifting of ocean currents, and the soft composition of the atmosphere. These changes do not happen in sudden leaps. They unfold so slowly that life has the space to adjust, to spread, and to reshape itself with grace. When I picture climate through this lens, I imagine an unhurried presence, breathing gently over the planet, guiding ecosystems with a steady hand that has remained constant through ages beyond our imagination. In earlier chapters of Earth's deep past, climate was influenced by the planet's young sun, which shone more faintly than it does now. Yet even with this softer light, Earth remained warm enough for liquid water thanks to a balanced mixture of gases that captured heat and kept temperatures stable. This early warmth did not blaze. It was a quiet, sustaining glow that allowed oceans to form and life to emerge. Over time, as the sun brightened, Earth adjusted through slow shifts in atmospheric composition, drawing down carbon dioxide through chemical weathering, producing oxygen through photosynthesis, and balancing greenhouse gases in a way that maintained a comfortable temperature for life to flourish. When viewed from afar, the planet seems to have a remarkable ability to stay within ranges that support life, not through rapid corrections, but through calm, gradual processes that play out over eons. As continents drifted across the globe, carried softly by tectonic plates, they shaped Earth's climate in subtle but profound ways. When landmasses clustered together, they created large interior regions where temperatures became more extreme, while coastlines experienced milder conditions influenced by nearby oceans. When continents spread apart, new coastlines formed, circulating air and water in fresh patterns. Mountains rose slowly, their peaks touching the sky only after millions of years of uplift. These mountains influenced climate by guiding winds, blocking moisture on one side and allowing dry air to flow down the other, creating vast deserts in quiet valleys. None of these events happened sharply. They unfolded like the Earth adjusting its posture over long stretches of time, reshaping wind patterns and rainfall without any rush. Every shift in climate caused by these movements was part of a soft, patient remodeling, as if the planet were gently stretching and settling into new shapes. One of the most soothing aspects of Earth's climate history is the natural rhythm of its long glacial cycles. These cycles, driven in part by the planet's slow wobble on its axis and its gentle changes in orbital shape, bring alternating periods of cold and warmth. During colder phases, ice sheets expand at a pace so slow that a human lifetime would barely see any difference. Snow falls, compacts into ice, and spreads outward in a gradual flow that seems almost motionless. During warmer phases, the ice retreats with equal patience, melting slowly and feeding rivers that carve peaceful valleys into the land. These glacial breaths have repeated many times, each cycle lasting tens of thousands of years. They have shaped coastlines, guided the paths of rivers, and influenced where forests and grasslands grew. And through all of it, life adapted smoothly, shifting habitats, moving gradually, settling into new ecosystems without urgency. Ocean currents also act as part of Earth's quiet climate system, circulating warmth in patterns that resemble soft pathways drawn across the global waters. These currents form when warm water rises and cool water sinks, creating slow-moving loops that travel across entire ocean basins. Although they may take hundreds of years to complete a single journey, their influence is continuous. They bring warmth to higher latitudes, allowing regions far from the equator to experience milder weather. They guide sea life that drifts peacefully along their routes, carrying nutrients that support marine ecosystems. When I imagine these currents, I picture long ribbons of water gliding beneath the surface, moving with deliberate calm, shaping climate through steady consistency. Even atmospheric circulation follows gentle cycles when seen from a wide perspective. Warm air rises at the equator, expands, and flows toward the poles. Cooler air sinks and returns. These large atmospheric cells move in a continuous rotation, shaping weather patterns but remaining balanced over centuries. Humidity travels slowly from warm oceans to cooler regions, settling as snow or rain, nourishing the land with a quiet generosity. The entire process resembles a slow heartbeat of the planet's steady, reliable, maintaining life with a natural rhythm that has persisted long before humans appeared. There have been times in Earth's history when the climate shifted more noticeably, but even these shifts occurred over long stretches rather than in sudden jolts. During warmer intervals, known as interglacial periods, forests spread into regions once covered by ice, filling them with life that took root gradually. Plants extended their ranges upward and northward, bringing new habitats to mountainsides and valleys. Animals followed, moving with the soft pull of new seasons filled with gentle warmth. These expansions happened so slowly that generations of creatures lived and died without ever sensing a dramatic shift. Even though the world around them was changing in subtle but enduring ways. During cooler stretches, grasslands expanded in areas where trees once stood. These open landscapes supported animals that grazed peacefully across broad plains, their steady movements shaping ecosystems without urgency. The migration patterns of ancient species often followed the slow pulse of climate, responding to shifts in vegetation and water availability. These responses were not panicked. They were thoughtful, instinctive adjustments passed down through generations. Throughout all these ages, Earth's climate remained connected to the atmosphere's quiet composition. Tiny shifts in carbon dioxide or methane levels had cumulative effects, but the atmosphere itself remained a soft blanket around the planet, thin, delicate, yet capable of holding warmth gently. Volcanic activity sometimes added gases to the air, but even these contributions mingled slowly, spreading through winds that carried them across the globe with calm diffusion. Plants absorbed carbon dioxide at their own natural pace, turning it into oxygen over long cycles that supported the steady balance of life. The entire atmosphere interacted with oceans, rocks, soils, and living beings in a peaceful exchange of gases and energy, shaping climate through gentle cooperation rather than sudden force. The Earth's tilt also guided climate with quiet elegance. When the tilt shifted slightly over thousands of years, the distribution of sunlight across seasons changed. Summers became a little warmer or cooler, winters a little shorter or longer. These shifts guided the waxing and waning of ice, the growth of forests, and the migration of species. The tilt cycle is long and unhurried, almost like the planet turning its head slowly from side to side over vast ages. And with each motion, environments adjusted softly, maintaining the continuity of life through gentle transitions. Even today, when climate change is often described with urgency, the underlying mechanisms remain the same slow processes that have always guided the planet: absorption of heat, circulation of air and water, the interplay of sunlight and surface. The difference now is not the nature of climate itself, but the pace at which certain changes are happening. Yet even within modern shifts, the Earth continues to respond through the same calm systems it has always used: oceans absorbing warmth, plants adjusting growth patterns, storms redistributing heat, and the atmosphere shifting gradually in composition. These responses remind us that, at its core, the climate system is still the quiet breath it has always been, even when nudged into motion more quickly than before. When I imagine the full sweep of climate across Earth's history, I see a long continuum of gentle transitions. Ice grows and recedes, warmth spreads and retreats, rainfall patterns drift slowly across continents, oceans rise and fall in quiet rhythm, forests migrate over mountainsides as temperatures shift, deserts expand and contract like slow-moving tides. Through all these changes, life adapts with patience, finding new ways to live in harmony with the world's soft breath. Thinking of climate in this way brings a sense of calm, as though I am listening to a quiet heartbeat that has pulsed through the Earth since its earliest days. It reminds me that the planet is always moving, always adjusting, always breathing, yet doing so with a grace that unfolds over timescales far longer than our own. When I think about the living world that surrounds us, I picture it not as a collection of separate beings, but as a soft and interconnected web that stretches across every continent, drifting through forests, oceans, grasslands, and quiet mountain valleys. This web does not hold itself together through force or competition. Instead, it thrives through delicate exchanges, patient cooperation, and the quiet rhythm of countless forms of life supporting one another in simple, steady ways. Every part of this living network, every plant, every animal, every microscopic organism lives in a balance built over millions of gentle adjustments. When I slow my mind enough to notice how deeply each thread is woven into another, the world begins to feel like a single peaceful system, breathing slowly in a harmony too subtle for most moments of daily life. And in this slow, interconnected breath, I sense the soothing presence of a planet that has nurtured life, not with urgency, but with quiet, enduring care. The foundation of this living web begins with the simplest organisms, those that draw sunlight or chemical energy and turn it into nourishment. Plants, algae, and tiny photosynthetic organisms in oceans form one of the most calming patterns in nature. They absorb light, grow at a steady pace, and release oxygen with a softness that is easy to forget but essential to everything. When sunlight touches a leaf, the plant receives it gently, converting light into food through photosynthesis. This act is so quiet, so constant, that forests and grasslands breathe without a sound, creating a slow exhale of oxygen that fills the atmosphere. These green beings are the quiet caretakers of life, and though they never move quickly or call attention to themselves, they offer support to every creature that breathes in forests. The connection between life grows even deeper. Trees, standing in calm clusters that remain for centuries, communicate in ways that are almost invisible. Their roots touch the soil, intertwining with networks of fungi that spread beneath the ground like delicate threads. Through these threads, trees share nutrients, water, and signals that help them adapt to changing conditions. When one tree receives more sunlight, it sends some of its nourishment to others in the shade. When a tree senses dryness, it may warn its neighbors. None of this happens with noise or urgency. It unfolds slowly, like soft messages drifting through the earth. These underground connections create an entire community of trees that support one another quietly, shaping forests into places where life thrives, not through competition, but through calm cooperation. Above this hidden network, branches rustle with soft movements of insects, birds, and small animals that navigate the canopy. Songbirds glide from tree to tree, carrying seeds and nurturing the spread of plants without even realizing it. Insects pollinate flowers as they travel in gentle patterns, ensuring that plants continue to grow through new generations. Even the hum of a bee or the flutter of a butterfly becomes part of a larger rhythm, a soothing cycle of life that repeats season after season. None of these creatures need force to fulfill their roles. They move naturally through spaces shaped by millions of years of quiet adaptation. Beneath the forest floor, small animals create their own calm contributions to the living web. Earthworms loosen soil as they move through it, allowing air and water to reach plant roots. Their steady, unhurried motions create the conditions for healthy soil that can hold nutrients, support plants, and nourish entire ecosystems. Tiny decomposers like fungi and bacteria break down fallen leaves and old wood with patient consistency. They return nutrients to the ground, ensuring nothing is wasted. These small beings may be invisible in the daily flow of life, but their slow and steady work sustains the entire system. In their quiet persistence, they mirror the Earth's most comforting patterns: gentle, continuous, and deeply supportive. In grasslands, the harmony takes a different but equally soothing form. Tall grasses sway in soft breezes, bending and rising with the wind's peaceful guidance. Grazing animals roam these open areas without hurry, feeding in gentle rhythms that actually help the grass grow stronger. When animals like bison or antelope feed on grass, they trim it just enough to encourage new growth. Their movements scatter seeds and press them lightly into the soil, ensuring that life continues in smooth cycles. Predators exist in these landscapes too, but in nature, even predation follows a calm balance shaped by instinct and necessity rather than chaos. Animals move through grasslands not in constant struggle, but in patterns that maintain the ecosystem's gentle equilibrium. Oceans, too, exist in a state of quiet interdependence. Under the surface, life moves in slow currents, drifting through gradients of light and heat. Tiny plankton form the base of marine ecosystems, floating peacefully and absorbing sunlight as they support the food web. Fish swim in coordinated patterns, not rushing but gliding, responding to subtle cues from the group. Coral reefs create underwater worlds where countless species live in close harmony, each contributing to the stability of the whole environment. Cleaner fish nibble parasites from larger species, helping them stay healthy. Sea grasses sway with tides, releasing oxygen and nurturing marine life. Even the largest animals in the ocean move with a calm grace. Whales travel long distances in slow, fluid motions, singing gentle songs that echo through the deep water. Wetlands provide another example of nature's quiet cooperation. Marshes, swamps, and river deltas filter water through gradual processes that unfold without noise. Plants slow the flow of water, allowing sediments to settle. Microorganisms purify the water by breaking down pollutants with steady, unhurried care. Birds nest in reeds, frogs rest in shallow pools, and fish find shelter among underwater plants. Wetlands are among the most peaceful places on Earth, and yet they perform some of the most important functions for the health of the planet. Their gentle filtering sustains rivers, lakes, and coastal environments with a calm efficiency that feels almost like the Earth caring for itself through soft, natural routines. The living web extends even into places that appear harsh at first glance. Deserts, though dry and quiet, hold communities of plants and animals that have adapted in subtle ways to thrive in gentle balance. Cacti store water slowly over long periods, releasing it gradually to survive extended dry spells. Desert animals emerge during cooler hours, moving lightly across sand to conserve energy. Even the sparse vegetation creates pockets of shade, offering small sanctuaries to insects and reptiles. Though deserts may seem barren, they host ecosystems built on patience, resilience, and steady rhythms that blend seamlessly with the land in colder regions. Tundra landscapes support life through quiet persistence. Mosses and lichens grow slowly, spreading across rocks in thin, delicate layers. Caribou migrate in seasonal patterns that have remained steady for thousands of years. Arctic foxes and hares adapt to winter by changing the color of their fur, blending naturally into snow-covered landscapes. These transitions, though linked to survival, happen with a calm acceptance of the environment's gentle cycles. All these ecosystems, grasslands, oceans, wetlands, deserts, tundra, connect with one another through shared air, shared water, shared temperatures, and shared life. They form a global web in which every part influences the others with soft, steady interactions. The atmosphere carries moisture from ocean to land. Rivers carry nutrients from mountains to the sea. Animals migrate between regions, carrying seeds, pollen, or nutrients with them. Even microscopic organisms travel through wind and water, linking distant ecosystems through the smallest movements. Life on Earth thrives not because each part stands alone, but because everything contributes in quiet, continuous ways to the stability of the whole. What amazes me most is how balanced this living web remains without any central guidance. No single species directs it, no force commands it. Instead, nature has found harmony through billions of tiny interactions, each shaped by the gentle forces of evolution, climate, and geography. This harmony is not static. It shifts, adapts, and breathes with the Earth's slow motions. But through all changes, the living web continues to hold itself together, with the same calm resilience that has defined life since its earliest days. And when I reflect on this vast, interconnected system, I feel a deep sense of peace. The Earth's living web is a reminder that life can be strong without being loud, connected without being rigid, and resilient without rushing. It shows that cooperation is often more powerful than conflict, and that the world grows healthiest when each part moves with steady intention, contributing what it can in its own quiet way. When I let my thoughts drift toward the future of our planet, I do not see something sharp or sudden waiting ahead. Instead, I imagine a horizon shaped by the same gentle forces that have always guided the Earth's slow rotation. Quiet, drifting countenance, soft exchanges of air and water, and the patient movement of life adapting to change in thoughtful, natural rhythms. The future, even with all its unknowns, feels like an extension of the long and calm story that has already unfolded across billions of years. Earth has always been a place where transformation happens gradually, where landscapes shift with the ease of drifting sand, and where living beings adjust through cycles that stretch far beyond the pace of any single moment. When I picture what lies ahead, I think of these gentle continuities, the slow rise of mountains, the soft reshaping of coastlines, the steady beating of seasons, and the quiet resilience of life finding balance again and again. The future, in this peaceful imagining, becomes not something to fear, but something to approach the way we approach sleep, calmly, slowly, trusting in the natural rhythms that guide everything. In the distant centuries and millennia to come, Earth's surface will continue to adjust through the quiet movement of tectonic plates. These plates do not rush. They drift no faster than fingernails grow. Yet over long stretches of time, they reshape continents with soft persistence. New mountain ranges will rise as plates push gently against one another, lifting rock inch by inch. Old mountains, softened by wind and rain, will erode slowly into rounded shapes, their sharp edges becoming smooth as though the earth was sanding them with time itself. Rivers will carve new paths, guided by the land's gradual adjustments. Coastlines will shift in response to rising or falling seas, creating new bays, new wetlands, and new islands in patterns that unfold like a quiet tide moving across centuries. None of these changes will declare themselves loudly. They will happen the way all natural transformations do, through steady movement that feels almost still when viewed from the pace of a human life. Oceans will also continue their calm cycles far into the future. Their currents, shaped by temperature differences and the Earth's rotation, will drift in looping patterns that guide climate across the globe. These currents may shift slightly over long periods, altering the warmth of certain coastlines or the distribution of nutrients in the water. But even these shifts will unfold with a gentle complexity, adjusting the balance of marine life as ecosystems move with the rhythm of the seas. Coral reefs, though sensitive, may find new places to grow, forming quiet underwater gardens where conditions allow. Sea grasses will continue waving in shallow waters, anchoring sediments and purifying coastal environments. Fish, whales, and countless other marine beings will adapt their migratory paths as the oceans subtly reshape themselves. Each change will ripple through the water with the soft continuity that has always defined life in the sea, where nothing moves abruptly, and everything follows currents that deepen and shift with time. The atmosphere will remain an active but gentle presence as well. Winds will continue to blow across landscapes in calm arcs. Guided by the steady rotation of the earth, cloud patterns will drift across continents, releasing rain and snow in cycles that nourish ecosystems and shape future landscapes. Storms, though part of nature's rhythm, will continue to be balanced by long stretches of quiet days when the sky remains soft and still. Air will circulate in its ancient patterns, bringing moisture from oceans to land, carrying pollen between forests, and spreading warmth or coolness slowly from one region to another. Even as the atmosphere evolves in response to the world's changes, it will continue to act as a delicate blanket around the earth, regulating temperatures in ways that support life with a gentle and persistent balance. Life, too, will keep adjusting in its soft and patient way. Species will shift their ranges as climates warm or cool. Plants will migrate gradually into new areas, carried by seeds lifted on breezes, by animals wandering slowly across landscapes, or by flowing water that carries plant fragments to new soils. Forests will reshape themselves through cycles of growth, decline, and renewal. Grasslands may spread into new regions where conditions become favorable. Wetlands will form in low-lying areas, offering sanctuary to birds, fish, insects, and countless small creatures that thrive in calm, water-filled environments. These shifts will not be abrupt. They will be guided by the gentle influence of seasons, rainfall, soil, and sunlight. Even when ecosystems experience challenges, life tends to respond not with chaos, but with quiet adaptation, finding new places to grow, forming new relationships, and continuing the ancient pattern of resilience that has carried life through all ages. Human beings, too, will be part of Earth's quiet future. Though we often imagine human influence as loud or overwhelming, our potential to support the planet lies in the same gentle rhythms that shape nature itself. In the future, people may learn to work more closely with the soft systems that sustain the Earth. Homes and communities might become better integrated with the land, using natural materials and quiet energy sources that blend with the environment rather than disrupt it. Cities may adopt spaces where plants, trees, and animals can coexist with human life, creating green corridors and soft landscapes that breathe alongside us. Technology might evolve to mimic the Earth's gentle processes, capturing energy from sunlight and wind without strain, recycling water in slow cycles, and building structures that flow with the land's natural contours. The future could be shaped by a deeper appreciation for the quiet wisdom of ecosystems and understanding that the Earth thrives when life works in balance rather than in opposition. As humanity grows, we may also learn from the slow patience of the planet's long history. We might shift from fast, urgent patterns to calmer, more thoughtful ones. We might measure progress not by how quickly things can be done, but by how harmoniously they can be sustained. The future may hold a quieter approach to living, one where people find serenity in simple routines, in natural rhythms, in the soft presence of forests, oceans, and sky. Moments of peaceful connection with nature may become a guiding part of human life, reminding us that we are not separate from the Earth's story, but woven into it as one thread among many. Looking even farther ahead into the deep future that stretches across thousands or millions of years, the Earth will continue its unhurried journey around the sun, rotating steadily and drifting gently through space. Continents will keep shifting, oceans will rise and fall, mountains will grow and crumble, forests will expand, shrink, and change. Life will adapt, forming new shapes and new communities in response to the changing world. It is a soothing thought to realize that the planet does not need to be perfect or unchanging to remain beautiful. Its beauty lies in its constant motion, in the soft evolution of landscapes and beings, in the quiet patterns that continue regardless of how much time passes. Even the stars above will drift slowly across the night sky as Earth rotates and orbits in its familiar, calming cycles. Constellations will shift their positions over long periods, forming new patterns for future generations to observe. The moon will continue to guide tides, pulling ocean waters in peaceful rhythms that echo through the Earth's coasts. Sunlight will always arrive in gentle waves, warming the planet with a soft presence that nurtures life. As I imagine all these future shapes, I am reminded of how deeply the Earth's calm patterns extend beyond any single moment or lifetime. The planet has always moved with slow confidence, guiding life through challenges and changes with a patience that feels almost infinite. And even though the future cannot be predicted with complete certainty, the gentle forces that have always shaped the Earth continue to offer a sense of reassurance. They remind us that the planet has a long history of balance, renewal, and quiet resilience, and that these qualities will guide its future as surely as they have guided its past. In this peaceful vision of what lies ahead, the earth remains a place of soft cycles, gentle transformations, and enduring harmony. The living web continues to breathe. Oceans continue to pulse. Forests continue to sway. Mountains continue to rise and soften. The sky continues to shift in quiet colors, and life, in all its forms, continues to find new ways to thrive within the planet's steady embrace. As I let these thoughts settle, I feel a deep calm wash over me. The Earth's future, shaped by the same soothing forces that shaped its past, feels like a continuation of a lullaby whispered across ages. It is a reminder that the planet is always in motion, always adjusting, always caring for life in its soft, patient way. And as I breathe slowly, imagining the long path ahead, I sense that same patience within myself, quiet understanding that the Earth's gentle rhythms will continue guiding us forward, moment by moment, into whatever peaceful shapes tomorrow may bring.